Okay, guys, so we're going to talk a bit about alternatives today. We've had already the theory in the economics panel. We've also already learned a lot about all sorts of ways we can change our monetary system, and we've heard several different opinions from different people, different approaches. You guys, of course, have yet another approach, or maybe somewhat similar to some of the things we've heard today. Let's first briefly introduce ourselves. So if you could just keep it below the minutes, try to do a brief introduction of who you are and why you are trying to reinvent money.
Okay, to start with, my name is Richard van der Linde. I'm working on the establishment of a full reserve bank. Not so much to change the whole system, but in a world where there are only fractional reserve banks, there's basically no choice. So you always feed the system with your savings. You're always incurring credit risk when you put your money at a bank. Of course, you can cash your money, withdraw it, and make it passive, but otherwise it will be active and be looping within the system. So we thought, well, let's make a bank that actually does the opposite and does nothing with your money, just keeps it as a digital vault, really. So a very old and boring bank, so to say. So I was a bit invited, confused that you invited me to talk about a boring bank, but it might be interesting to talk about the economic implications as well.
Will be fun.
So yeah, my name is auer-welsbach. I'm program director at the startup accelerator Rockstart here in the Netherlands. We started investing into this blockchain and cryptocurrency sector this year at the beginning of 2015. And we usually tend to invest into kind of disruptive solutions that young people come up to with concepts. We did this as a first place 2010-11 with peer-to-peer platforms. We invested, for example, also in 3D Hubs, which is this on the forefront of disrupting manufacturing on the local side or on site. And now we do the same and try to help startups or entrepreneurs that want to build up something on the blockchain basis.
Hi, I'm Henk van Arkel, a social trade organization. We have basically two kinds of activities. One is we build software, cycler software. That is basically banking software with several innovations in it. We received the IP Innovation Award last year, international reward for the most innovative software in the IP industry. But at the same time, we do a research and development program to find alternatives for money. And if you don't mind, I would like to agree with you on 2 points. If we talk about the definition of money, let's talk about it as if it's a way to transfer power through time and space. All the rest is bullshit. Then if we talk about the functions of money, normally if you look to a function, you look to what has been most happening. So I would say the first function of money is speculation. And at the end comes maybe means of exchange or means of calculation. But please keep in mind that we are totally that we are ideologized. We are thinking in terms that are basically not true, but that makes us think in a wrong way. Presently, we are doing a pilot in Europe with in Sardinia, Bristol, and Catalonia. Where we introduce term money. Term money use one of the innovations in the software in which we can give money a certain period of time that it exists. And during that time we can make specific conditions to make it work in a certain way.
Thank you. I'm Edgar Wortman. I'm involved with Stichting Ons Geld, who is preparing now to take the discussion about the money system to the Dutch Parliament. The 14th of October, we will have our first session with the subcommittee of finance. And then we have basically 3 things we want to put forward there. The first thing is that we say, well, maybe I make that the first thing, that in the Dutch constitution it is said that the law governs the money system. And it's our opinion that the law doesn't do it that well. at this moment. So this is why we go to Parliament and tell them you are not doing it as well as a lawmaker. You should do better. And how should they do better? Well, in the first place, we think money should be the servant to society and not the master of society. So the whole money system, money creation and how it works should be made servient, should be run in the public interest. And we think that's a responsibility for the government to initiate that. So we bring that forward to them. There is another important thing, that's unbundling of the current situation in which the money, the currency we used, is bundled with bank credit. So banks can now, it's bundled with the business of banking. So banks can now hijack the whole economy when they are in trouble. And that's the reason why we are in crisis. And we have to talk about quantitative easing and things like that. And so we say, well, come up with a radical solution to have this problem put away. Let's unbundle the business of banking and the currency. So these are three things we want to put forward there.
Okay, let's talk about that first. So you want to split credit and money. Basically, that's what you're trying to do as well, Richard. You want to start a bank that is actually not a bank, but more of a deposit.
Right.
Like a storage facility where people can safely store their money without it being used as credit. So to what extent are you on the same page as Edgar, or is there still a difference? Because you're trying to set up a commercial enterprise, and he's trying to influence the government to radically change, or to basically have the government issue money, and you want it still being done by commercial enterprises. What's the difference?
Well, the difference is that what Edgar is saying, that they actually want to ring fence certain aspects of banking and create the money creation process not so much within the commercial banks, but within an independent body. And what we're saying is, well, that might be very interesting, but we don't know yet. So that's going to be kind of a gamble if you go for that. Let's find out if we get a market where there are different types of banks, fractional and full reserve banks, where at some point maybe we can abolish the deposit insurance schemes, because that's basically interfering with markets. See how a market can organize itself, and then if we have done that experiment, we might be satisfied, or otherwise we can still shift to an independent body for money creation.
So you basically want the market to decide how these things work out. So people would store their money at a company, and other companies would act like banks, and they would use the money and loan it out.
Right.
And you want to get rid of deposit insurance. So you want to have the market take care of everything. But you, Edgar, want the government to take charge. What do you think of his plans to have people set up a company to become a storage facility?
Well, let me put one thing right first. I don't want the government to do everything regarding the money system. It has to regulate. It has to make sure that there is a sound money system that's servant to the society. Now, what this new banking idea of Robert does is... Richard, is something that's complementary to what we would like to see. We want to have an unbundling of the currency and the business of banking. And he is making a business scheme of banking that's working towards that. Because what now creates the bundle is that when you think you have a deposit on your bank, you think you save money on a bank, you don't save it actually, but you give it away. So, and we want to unbundle that. And his banking scheme, as I interpret it, as I understand it, is that when you put your money in his bank, you really save it. So he doesn't use it for anything else.
May I go from another perspective? If we talk about money as a way to transfer power, then clearly we need a bottom-up way to create money. I think you can describe society in a way of who is creating money and how effectively has that been done. So what we are pursuing, and also organizing in the Netherlands, by the way, is the opportunity for the economic partners to create their own money. We use for that term euros, when a bank creates a loan, it's basically the payment promise of in the future that will become the money. So you go for a mortgage, you bring in your repayment promise, you bring in the ownership of the house. They stick it together, knit it in small pieces, make it money, and give it back to you and say we want twice or three times as much back. What we think, that process, we should get the ownership in our own hands, in the hands of the people who produce, and also of the hands of the people who at this moment, because of lack of purchasing power, do not have the opportunity to create a company. Because creating a company, expressing your productive capacities, needs a way to communicate with clients. Now, if money is a thing of power, it doesn't go where it is needed to relate people who can produce something to people who like what is being produced. So we are in that field, and I think that is a third point of view.
And is that possible? Because you use the word term euro, so it's still based on the euro. Or is your system going to coexist with the euro?
No, it's not based in euro, because if you create it...
But you call it a term euro, so it has at least the connotation.
What is needed if you are in an economy, that you have one language. If we don't know what the value of a product is, we have a problem, because we need to be able to express it. Now, the best way to express it is in something that everybody knows. Euro is well known here in the shops. So if you call it a term euro, then it's basically a claim on euro in the future. But it's you, the one who took the credit, who is going to try to get the claim back, because he promised it. If he earns it back by doing something for somebody else in the economy, it disappeared. It never becomes a euro. And if not, yes, it needs to become a euro, because otherwise people wouldn't trust it.
Right. Let's switch a bit now to different alternatives and how they're being developed. Christoph, you work for an accelerator or incubator, so you help fintech companies that are trying to make a change. And there's of course a lot of cryptocurrency companies out there, startups. We have quite a few in the audience here that are trying to make a change, trying to come up with alternatives. How do you see all these other sort of meta initiatives being developed? Is that how can you coexist with the more macro initiatives that are out there and your own startups?
I would say that there are two aspects to that. One thing is, or one major part that we see is that there are, let's say, normal fintech or fintech service companies that are based on the current infrastructure. So they are trying to work together with the current banking infrastructure. And then we have this blockchain cryptocurrency layer on the side, which we made a decision to have a deeper look into that, because we strongly believe that's the future. Because they don't need the infrastructure from banks. When working out of Level 39 in London, which is the biggest technology incubator here in Europe, we always had these startups coming in and telling us, hey, we really want to disrupt this whole business, this industry. We really want to fuck the banks. Can you help us with that? And we said, yeah, of course. And usually, to 99%, it was the case that they came back after 3 months and said, hey, before we can actually do that, can you help us working together with the banks? Because actually we need them. And that's, I think, the big difference to blockchain-related companies, because they can build on their own infrastructure. They're independent from the other system. So, yeah, if that answers the question.
Yeah, and is it still very difficult for example, Bitcoin company in Holland to get a bank account?
Yeah, definitely. So for the one company that we invested in middle of February, they received a bank account, thankfully, from Rabobank after kind of a 6.5 months fight through, I think, 5 compliance officers. And I don't know, also under limited terms, so only that they can use this bank account just for paying salaries and paying rent and these kind of things, so completely controlled again. So the exact opposite what we actually want to have these days, right? So yeah, it's difficult for startups to really get off the ground. It's an issue that we bet on the future as investors, but we need to convince also the mainstream, so the public, to also believe in that future. And I think that's also what Andreas mentioned today.
May I invite
Yeah.
you then in the next time not to open a bank account in a bank, but in the circuit we are building, the bottom-up circuit, where you can spend to companies through your own outside of the bank. So maybe that's an opportunity for you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
It's interesting because some people, if you have paid their tickets with Bitcoin, some others with cash, and there's also someone who paid with your term euros. So now I have that balance that I can spend in the companies that are associated to that. I haven't found anything yet to spend on, but there's no timer. The money will not disappear at some point, right? Or because
Yeah. Because at this moment you still can convert at any time.
Yeah.
Because at this moment there are no credits. As soon as we start with credits, everybody gets a term. Yours 0,
Yeah.
because it is already existing, but the new credit will get the term of the period of the credit, of course.
Right. Okay. Edgar, so there's a lot of different alternatives out there also developed in the market. You said earlier with our plan, which is kind of a neo-Chicago plan, you don't want the government to. You just want the government to regulate it, right? But as far as I understand, you also want the government to actually issue the money unit and print more money.
Well, basically, we think that it's principally the function of government, as a democratic government, to have hold on this big wheel of power that's in society, to make a society operate smoothly and fairly. So now this big wheel of power is in the hands of private interests. It's exploited. We always learn that it should not be in the hands of politicians. We agree with that. They would exploit it for their gaining votes. So we think it should be clearly run transparently and visibly to us all, and serviently to society. So now it's hidden. The way it's run, it's hidden somewhere in technical things and institutions, and and that things just go in a way that we hope that it wouldn't go that way, but it just happened that way. This is what we have to read in the newspaper every day, and we want to say, well, it's an invention, money, and we have to take care of it. So we have to do that properly as a civil society, not give it away to private interests, do not give it away to politicians, but just do it in a professional, transparent way. And I think it should be a part of the government.
So
but
maybe using blockchain technology then to make it more transparent?
Well, I don't see if we really need blockchain. What I see is that we can make it totally digital. Why not? Because that makes it more easy. And we could make it totally interchangeable with anything on the planet. That would make it easy. Yeah. So if we need blockchain for it, well, okay, but maybe there's some other technology. I'm not that interested in the technology, in how it's run, but technological, but in how it's run in a legal way, and how it's run as a part of democratic society. And then I think, well, transparency is very important, and we have to take care of it. We have to acknowledge that the money system is not something that runs out of itself. It won't run better if you say, well, gold is money. No, gold is not money. Gold is gold, and money is money. And money as a system has to be run, and now it's run by private interests who exploit it for their interests. That's a bad situation. We have to address that, and we think that's something that has to do, the lawmaker has to do for us in a democratic
May I add
society.
something to this initiative?
Yes.
Because one of the main points presently with the creation of money, it is created as debts, as interest-bearing debts. And the interest goes to a private party. So there is it's a wheel to create more power, etc. So one of the things that in the transparency in this initiative should be clear, that if there is a yield of the creation of money, that it goes to society and not to individuals.
That is exactly what we are putting forward in Parliament. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Richard, let me ask you a question. Andreas just said that fiat currencies or the national currencies will be extinct at some point. What do you think of that?
Well, I don't think we have the end solution, but I think we're stuck with this system for still quite a while.
Do you want national currencies to end, or what is your long-term objective?
Well, I mean, I see money as a public utility, and the same as the payment system. And if you look at the systems they propose to transition to, where the early adapters already have their Lamborghinis, I get a bit skeptical, to be honest.
Yeah, that was a bit of interesting PR for Bitcoin, I guess. But
Yeah.
let's open it up for the audience, because we have still 10 minutes, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions from the audience, because we have very different solutions here. Can you go for it? We have some question here at the front. Please also say to you direct the question, because we have one answer per.
Okay, yeah. The question on transparency in fiat currency. Could you elaborate a bit on how that's achieved? Because at the moment, the government have control over how much cash is created, and there's no transparency in what the cash is spent on.
Well,
with fiat, there is no way of creating transparency in fiat money, because it has to rely upon some kind of ledger which a human creates, which can be corrupted.
well, the government is formally the one who creates the coins. So yes, government creates some money, but it's not, let's say, it's monetarily, it's not important, the money that government creates. So even in Europe, governments are not called money creation institutions anymore, because commercial banks, they create the money. And they do it just by making the loans. And the way why they do it is to make their own profit. Well, the way we want to have it transparent and controlled is to have the quantity of the outstanding money being governed by one monetary board, which in our opinion is not a part of a bank or a central bank or the banking system, but is a function of government, a monetary function of government. And that is then one central body that can give full transparency about everything regarding the quantity of money in the system.
I have another question for Edward, because you say like going digital will make it easier. But I mean, for those of us that are on the internet since more than 20 years, we know that it's not easier. I mean, there are more cyber warfare conferences nowadays than Bitcoin conferences. And if we would be running digital voting, we would be jeopardizing pretty much the democracy of any country. So, I mean, how would you actually address the actual warfare that is going on the digital space?
I think that the developments in the digital space are very important, and maybe even that's an extra reason for government to step in more dominantly in organizing the money system, because there might be all kind of opportunities for alternatives, and we think very favorable about those opportunities, because we are in the starting phase of that. Just like 15 years ago, we were in the starting phase of the internet, and everybody was dreaming about a cyberspace where everything was solved democratically and as a process that was steered by some invisible hand. But what you see on the internet is that it is something that is panoptisch, something that has full centralized, the potential for full centralized control that goes in the veins of society, and that's also commercially exploited. It's just a business of exploiting that and having that control. So yes, technology gives opportunity to make things better, but if we dream of that, if we do not control it in any way or steer it any way, that it will be the right way, that it will go itself, I don't share that dream. I think that it will be used by interests that have the power to use it as a tool to consolidate the power they already have and make it even bigger.
Next question.
Hallo. I have a question for Richard. Sorry, I'm speaking Dutch. I thought the idea of the Full Reserve Bank was quite good. It's obviously a function of bank, I think, to act as a deposit, a safe deposit institution. But it does seem a little bit wasteful. If people, you're going to have people that will have a lot of savings, will be able to create a lot of money for themselves, and there'll be people that cannot do that. And it seems wasteful to have people that make a lot of money to be able to deposit it somewhere and just leave it, while others maybe don't have enough. Can you consider maybe also using a bank like that as a risk evaluation center, so that actually the money can be invested, but then with a good evaluation beforehand?
Yes.
So the function is actually providing a service as a risk evaluation center for society.
Well, if you look at the economy now, there are plenty of different options to invest in with different risk profiles. And what we aim to do is to make it very accessible, so you can actually put your money in the account, but from there you actually have like a hub where you can make all your investments. So it's not so much that we try to get all the money out of the system, but it's more that we think it's like a public utility, a basic right to have at least the option to put it somewhere where you don't incur any risk, but you don't get any return. And from there on, of course, we try to, well, maybe it's not the right word, but persuade people to make good investments, and especially in things that we think that will be beneficial for the economy as a whole.
Okay.
I think there's time for one more question.
Hello, my name is Gert Oermans from the Egelon Foundation. I have a question for Henk van Arkel. In how it's much your system, your solution, would be a peer-to-peer solution or a client service solution? And if so, if it's a client service solution, what is your objection to the talk of Andreas Antonopoulos?
Basically, if you talk about what are the needs in the economy, you start to talk from community to community. Money is not an individual thing. Money is a community thing. So peer-to-peer from one individual to another is not a logical element in the economy. It's a community that needs to be able to develop all the potentials that are inside that community, need a means of exchange for that, a means of investment for that, and they need to be able to communicate with another community. For example, we work here in Holland in a community that in when the economy is going down, it's shrinking, and we work in cities. Now, obviously, the purchasing power and the saving money goes from the rural areas to the Randstad area. So it means that one generation next, all the children are also working where the investment has been made and where the money has been spent. So you are killing basically those areas. For us, the main point of focus is that those communities can work in a way and can decide how they want to relate with their peers, their other communities elsewhere. So peer-to-peer I would translate by community to community, and each community sets its own, basically its own exchange rate to enable the money to circulate long enough in their own community before it goes outside. Because as long as there is unemployment, as long as there are potentials that are not really used, I think the money should go around a little bit more.
So you clearly object against Bitcoin?
Sorry?
So you clearly object against Bitcoin? You clearly object against Bitcoin as a solution?
No, the point is, with Bitcoin, it's based on speculation, not on production. Because the value is, because of the limited quantity of Bitcoins, it starts to get a value. If there would be unlimited volumes, it wouldn't have any value. Now, we prefer to have the value related to the productive capacity of businesses inside the community, because you don't even need more money than you need money to exchange that productive capacity. So at some point we definitely will introduce a blockchain in our Cyclos software, but always based on the interest of the communities, not on the interest of individuals.
Like a country coin.
Sorry?
Like a country coin.
And even a country is superficial. I mean, in Holland we might have, let's say, a Randstad area and rural areas or whatever. So the stupid thing in the discussion around Greece was that we say in or outside the euro. While we are living in a digital age, you can dominate money, you can give it so many rules that it is not anymore inside or outside. It can be on its own and related to. And then it would never be a Greece coin. It would be a cred, because the regions in Greece are pretty different from economic perspective. So they also need a different means of exchange.
Well, that's it for guys, because it's now time for a break. But thank you so much for your contributions to this debate. Richard, Christoph, Henk, and Edgar.